It was a Tuesday when Eleanor first noticed the silence wasn't just a lack of sound. It had become its own presence. At 69, Eleanor had learned to live with the absence of noise. The television no longer played in the background as it once had when her husband, Frederick, was alive. Even the sound of her own voice had become foreign to her. Most days she didn't speak at all, except to murmur a thank you at the grocery store or to greet the neighbor's cat. Eleanor lived alone in a red-brick colonial cottage on the edge of town, tucked behind a grove of dogwood trees. The house was too big now. Once, it had hosted birthday parties, Thanksgiving dinners, and sleepovers filled with laughter. Now, the rooms felt hollow, as if the walls themselves ached from the lack of touch, the missing scent of cinnamon bread, or the absence of busy footsteps across hardwood floors. She kept the house immaculate, almost obsessively so. Every doily was perfectly straight, the teacups never had dust, and the windows gleamed. It was the one thing she could still control, the cleanliness of the home that had become both sanctuary and prison. Eleanor had been a painter in her earlier years. Oil on canvas, vast, expressive landscapes and intimate portraits of people she'd loved. But when Frederick passed, she stopped painting. The brushes dried, the canvas stayed blank, and the once light-filled studio upstairs became just another quiet room. She hadn't stepped foot in it for nearly 8 years. That Tuesday started like any other. A bowl of oatmeal, a lukewarm cup of tea, and a seat by the window where she watched the world go on without her. A jogger passed by at 7:10 like always. The mail arrived at 11:15. Routine, it was the only heartbeat the day had. But something was different that day. Perhaps it was the letter. An off-white envelope with blue cursive letters. No return address. She hadn't expected anything. No birthdays, no holidays approaching. She held it in her palm for a few moments before opening it. Inside was a single piece of paper. Dear Eleanor, I don't know if this will reach you, but I hope it does. I'm sorry for the years of silence. I still think about that afternoon. I still see you in the dress you wore, with paint smudged on your cheek, and I regret not turning back. M. Eleanor's fingers trembled. She read it once, then again. Her knees weakened, and she dropped into the nearest chair. Her chest felt hollow like wind blowing through a broken flute. She hadn't thought about him in decades, Matthew. Before Frederick, before marriage, there had been one summer. She was 23. Matthew was visiting the area, traveling across the country in a beat-up green Pontiac with a guitar in the back seat and a dog-eared notebook filled with poetry. They spent 3 weeks together, painting, talking, swimming in the lake by moonlight. He kissed her under a thunderstorm and said he was afraid to stay because staying meant the end of dreams. When he left, she didn't chase him. And she never knew why. Years passed. She met Frederick. A kind, responsible man who built a life with her that was solid, good, and safe. But deep down, there had always been a locked room in her heart with Matthew's name on it. And now this letter, like a ghost slipping through the cracks, had opened that room again. She locked the front door, trembling. Her fingers fumbled with the key. She didn't want the outside world anymore. Not today. She walked upstairs. Her feet paused outside the studio. Her hand hesitated on the doorknob. She opened it. Dust swirled like memory ghosts. The canvas sat on the easel, blank but waiting. As if it knew she'd return one day. Eleanor exhaled slowly and picked up a brush. The first stroke was clumsy. The second smoother. By the 10th, the colors began to bleed into each other the way emotions bled into memory. Quietly, beautifully, without permission. Over the next weeks, Eleanor painted every morning. Her fingers ached. Her wrists complained. But she painted. She painted the lake from that summer. She painted the thunderstorm. She painted her younger self, barefoot, laughing, free. She painted her older self too, wrapped in grief but blooming again. Slowly, like a dogwood in April, people started to notice. The neighbor's daughter, Hannah, peeked in and saw the paintings through the open window. One day she knocked. "These are beautiful. Did you make them?" Eleanor nodded. "Would you want to show them at the community center's art night?" At first, Eleanor wanted to decline. She wasn't ready to be seen. But something inside her, something small and whispering, said yes. The night of the showing, she wore a deep green blouse and a soft scarf. Her hair was pinned back gently, and she walked into the center with a canvas under each arm. People smiled. They asked questions. They cried. A woman placed her hand over her heart and whispered, "That one, that's how my grief felt." Eleanor smiled for the first time in years. A real smile. One that didn't feel borrowed. That night, back home, she lit a candle and opened her old journal. She wrote, "I thought silence was safety, but it was fear. And I am no longer afraid." She returned to painting the next day. And the next. Sometimes she thought of Matthew. Sometimes she thought of Frederick. But mostly she thought of herself, not as someone waiting to be remembered, but someone who had started remembering who she was all along.